Hello! So, before we get started, I've been told very explicitly to make it clear that any of the names that you see in the Legendary Army book here, whether that's names for the units, names for their special rules, names for the mounts, names for magic items, anything like that, it's all subject to change as Background haven't finished their little bit of work yet before the release is ready. So bear that in mind, but other than that, enjoy! Perfect. Right. Hello, and welcome back to day 5 of KOE spoilers. So I'm again joined by my special guest Hugh. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Wonderful. Right. So today we are looking at the Fey, the final section of the book. And you haven't actually taken any in your list, have you?
No, I didn't take any, but there's definitely some good choices in here. I was tempted.
Right, let's take a look at that and then we can discuss why they're not in lists later. So first up we've got the Nyads, which are water spirits. I think if you look up their mythology, you know where the name comes from. So you can take them in models of 5 to 10. They are standard height beasts. Advanced 6, March 12, Light Troops, Wizard Conclave, Water Spirits, and they've got the Fey Spirit special rules, so you can only join damsels to them, actually. Damsels and models with Fey Spirit. So I guess you could put a sainted character on a Fey steed and then join them in here, but then they'd be a different type. So
yeah, same as damsels, which we were discussing earlier off call, where you can put a damsel in here as a kind of bunker, but the damsel is different height, a different type, being an infantry over beast.
Yeah, so you can still pick her out in shooting, which is a shame.
Could have been a nice bunker.
Not a bad bunker. I suppose you could put her in with the hooded men instead, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so they've got 2 hit points each, defensive 4, res 2, no armor, and a 5+ Aegis. They don't come with a blessing, so they're not an Equitaine unit. They haven't got any attacks or offensive skill, but they've got strength 3, AP 3, and agility 5, and they've got 2 grind attacks each. So I guess a full unit of 10 would be 10, 15 grinds?
Yeah. Full unit of 10, it could be up to 50. I don't think you grind from the second rank unless you get a special rule for it, so it would...
Oh, okay. I thought that was capped at 1.
No.
Or no, it's not at all. Okay.
I don't think
I don't
think there's any grinds from second rank anymore.
Yeah. It's strange. The only units I can think of are the Hoarders and Wretched Ones, and of course they both got rules to ignore that. So
yeah, exactly. This is and they have their special rule, bit of a weird one. Water spirits turning off flaming attacks essentially, and being able to scout in water.
Yes, yeah. So you can either scout in your deployment zone or fully inside of water, and they've also got Strider water terrain. So odd one.
Yeah, I mean, like this is
if you're...
it's a weird unit. I mean, strength 3, AP 3. It's a good anti-cavalry unit, kind of. Agility 5 grinds. Strength 3, AP 3. I mean, they're not bad at killing other cavalry. They are, like, for the wounds and the everything, they're fairly resilient. I think this is a unit that's built up for its Wizard Conclave, which is
basically
excellent spell selection for the army. Healing Waters, although Healing Waters is okay, but the kind of feels a little redundant on a lot of units these days because of the potential for ward save to 5 up very easily. But Savage Fury is excellent on lances, essentially +1 to hit. Deceptive Glamour can quite often mean +1 to hit or striking first. Scrying -1 to hit back is also very good on most units. So yeah, there are a couple of really nice spells in there. Adding in a champion, you get this unit for 10 wounds, res 2, 5 up for about 300 points.
An additional wound on a champion for a Wizard Conclave as well, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Wounds.
11 wounds. So, I mean, your standard damsel, if you went Destria over Unicorn is about 260. So
Yeah.
for 40 points more, you're essentially getting 11 5-up ward, doesn't need a bunker, 10 strength 3 AP3 grinds, and then a decent spell selection, but freeing up points out of characters. So it's an interesting choice.
Yeah, taking the magic out of characters is the really important bit, really, with this. It means you can spend more points on those paladins, the folk heroes, your sainted character. It's a nice way of going it, and decent magic there to do it as well. Healing waters means that the unit can self-heal a little bit as well. They seem very susceptible to just being shot off with ranged damage, potentially.
Yeah.
Because they're only res 2, aren't they? So, you know,
most of their spells have a decent-ish range, to be fair. So, but yeah, Savage Fury, some of the stuff, Scrying, yeah, some of it does have a reasonably low range, yeah.
Yeah, an interesting unit, and I like the Strength 3 AP3 grind attacks are funky to see. So, nice to see something other than very run-of-the-mill, like, you know, Offensive 4, Strength 4, AP1 stuff.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in some matchups, potentially elves, etc., you could have a unit here that could actually be actively attacking flanks, as well as being a Wizard Conclave.
Yeah, very nasty. Cool. So next up is the Friars Lantern. This was the unit that was spoiled, mentioned as Swarm of Lights in some of the army lists on the spoiler thread. So it's a standard height beast on a 50mm square. It's got Scout, Fly, 816. It's unstable, insignificant, hard target 2. It's only res 1. It's got a 5+ Aegis and 5 hit points. No normal attacks. It's got 1 strength 1 AP0 grind. So you might be wondering, why on earth would I be wanting to take this? And it's because of Illusions and Lights in the Mist. So Lights in the Mist, the model may perform a sweeping attack. The enemy unit suffers 1 hit with strength 1 AP0. Enemy units suffering 1 or more hits from the grind attacks or sweep attacks from the Friars Lanterns suffer the following effects until the end of the next player turn. -2 advance rate, -2 march rate, and -2 pursue distance.
Yeah.
I really like this. I think this is I think it's a nice way of getting Evil Eye in that you haven't had to pay for or cast magic for, and as it's got such a long movement, you can hit a unit that you might be worried about countercharging you. I think it's with Illusions having it, they have to fear despite having Fearless. They essentially have Feigned Flight as well because they never count as shaken after passing a rally, but better, so they can flee they can flee and then flee again and then still rally and be active, which is cool. But yeah, not great chaff, but good as kind of preventative chaff, I suppose.
It is a very weird unit. There, you can use it with its Scout and try and get around the flanks and just be taxing people's charge distances, which is a good thing for KoE. Or you could run it down the middle in front of someone's big unit and sit in front of it and say, you can't move around me, but if you charge me, I'm going to pull you out of position, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the two roles for it. Like, potentially both interesting roles. Pulling a unit out of position could be good. The difficulty being that you have to sit until the unit charges. So there's potential for the unit to just ignore them, and then you can't really advance because that unit it's sitting in front of can always redirect if it charges, so you can't push up too aggressively.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. It potentially means sitting off, but certainly if it's a scary combat unit that you're sitting in front of, that can sometimes be worth it.
Yeah.
Like essentially shutting that unit down or pulling it out of position is potentially very powerful.
Yeah, I think it would take a lot of practice to use this unit well, and I imagine if you don't, then it would feel very lackluster.
I mean, certainly the low leadership and the always having to flee is potentially, and the issues with that for marching as well is potentially going to be annoying.
Yeah, definitely.
in terms of using it.
Yeah, I think maybe it would be best with a divination mage so that you can stick the attributes on there somehow.
Potentially.
Yeah, an interesting unit. I think these are fun.
Yeah, I mean they're relatively cheap as well. They're even they're potentially could be fun to use for sure.
Yeah, and only 5 points more than a fully upgraded unit of Yeoman Outriders with their 4-up save. Cool. So next unit. So this was spoiled as the Fey Courtier, and it has had plenty of changes since it was spoiled. So forget everything you know about it, and we'll look at it here. You've got 2 flavours, the Courtier of the Dawn and the Courtier of the Dusk. Basically the stat line of a Blazing Glory almost. Lots of 5s. It's got 2-up armour. It's only AP2, only 4 attacks. It's got a 4-up Aegis in against melee attacks. It's one of a kind as well, so you can't have more than one. And then the true flavour comes from the upgrades. So if you go for of the Dawn, then you get +3 attacks, you gain fly, you count towards the gallantry cap, and model parts, friend or foe with harnessed, engaged in the same combat as the model, gain +1 to hit, which I thought was really very strange.
Yeah, it's a weird upgrade. It's I guess they're being more beastie or of the woods. It's supposed to be a sort of kindred spirit thing, is my guess, but it's a minor upgrade that's a little odd. I mean, certainly interesting. I hope it didn't factor too heavily into the price.
Yeah, I shouldn't think so. I mean, the most scary mounts that we've got in the art, because you shouldn't be playing wide with your knights. You should be playing pretty narrow, so you don't want +3 to hit, +1 to hit with your 3 strength 4 attacks on your war horses.
Yeah.
But potentially in a list with double hippogriff, it might be good. Hippogriffs hitting +1, or with lots of Fey steeds potentially. It might be good offering additional to the Knight's Penitent, because they've got strength 5 mounts. But I mean, as soon as you come up against an enemy with a dragon, you have to be really wary as to where you put this guy.
Absolutely, yeah.
A dragon, or chariots, any kind of ridden monster, units of the chosen knights, Knights of the Sun Griffin. Yeah, so I think this is a double-edged sword, and I think that's very, very good for Fey type stuff. Whether or not it's actually good for your army, it will remain to be seen. I think it's probably generally more of a bonus for your opponent than you.
Yeah.
And then your other upgrade is the Courtier of the Dusk, and this model becomes a wizard adept that must choose the druidism or witchcraft paths. Cannot select the hereditary spell. In addition, the casting value of spells that target the model and or any unit engaged in the same combat as the model, friend or foe, is reduced by 1.
It's a bit wordy, that last bit, but essentially, yeah.
Yeah, +1 to cast. Well, -1 to casting values of spells targeting that combat, basically.
Yeah, essentially. Which is interesting. I
suppose for druidism.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this unit. It feels like an expensive mage.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, like it's a mage that has to run around on its own, and is vulnerable to shooting and magic. I mean, you can get it into combat, I guess, but like it's not got that many attacks, so it's reasonably tough. But it's a big upgrade on a damsel or whatever for magic cast, and is the 4 strength 5 that you're getting out of that worth it?
Yeah, it's a bit strange. It's a bit expensive, I suppose, at the moment. But again, it moves magic out of the character section, which might be
that is potentially where strength lies. And the Courtier of the Dawn one, it's a bunch of strength 5 kind of running around. Yeah, it's okay. I'm just not. That's a lot of points for 7 strength 5 again. Not convinced. But it's a very interesting unit on paper, but maybe just a little overpriced at the moment is my initial thought.
Yeah, yeah, potentially. I don't see them being particularly auto includes at the moment, which is probably good. Yeah, yeah. I think they're really interesting. I think they're a little bit overpriced at the moment. I think the +1 to hit for harnessed model parts is hilarious.
Yeah, it's so odd.
Yeah. And that leads us to the very final unit in the whole book. We're finally at the end. This is the Fey Night. So it's the Green Knight on a much larger base. It's now large cavalry on a 50 by 75mm. All the good stuff that you'd come to expect. It's got Ghost Steps, Fear, Supernal, Fey Spirit. Slightly lighter on the armor save than the old Green Knight, but it's got 4 hit points, 4 strength 5 AP3 attacks, defensive 6, defensive 6, agility 6. The Fey Steed from the character section, but without the breath weapon, and then must choose between one of these two. So it can either choose Stream and Springs or Field and Stone. If it goes for Stream and Springs, this is one of a kind. It costs 360 points. The rider gains a Bastard Sword. The model gains Bound to the Land, Water Terrain, Aegis, +1 against melee attacks, and Stubborn. In addition, it counts as a champion for the purpose of duels that must issue and accept duels wherever possible, and this can't be prevented by another model issuing a duel first. Bound to the Land is ambush, but without having to roll, and you have to ambush out of water terrain.
Did you say it has to ambush?
It doesn't have to ambush anymore, no.
Okay, good, because I was going to say that was something that someone had pointed out to me about previous versions of this, that it could potentially never come on the board if it had to ambush.
Yes. Yeah. If it was like the old, Pokeball out of the damsel's pocket,
yeah,
there's a very good chance it just gets stuck, but it doesn't come
if
on.
there's a map with no water features, yeah.
Yeah, which is very likely at some tournaments, right? Because they're limited terrain. But that essentially gives it slightly fewer attacks than it used to, but still stubborn, still supernal. You don't have to be in range of
damsel, yeah,
a damsel for the stubborn, and it has to issue duels now. They don't have to be accepted, but yeah.
But that it's not the duels aren't contingent on stubborn or anything, and +1 ward save in combat, so it's always got a 4 up in combat. It's very nice. 4 wounds, and the ambushing from a water terrain feature, depending on side's pick, is potentially very tasty and very very useful for disrupting your opponent's lines. It's a fairly scary character, so you can't just ignore it, and it popping up in the back lines is potentially a big problem for people.
Yeah. I suppose it acts like Briar Beasts, but have to come out of water, so they've got to be placed entirely within, and then they get their move, I think. It doesn't say otherwise. Cool, so that's nice. And then alternatively, you can go for Fields and Stone, so it gets bound to the land field, so that's exactly the same, except it pops out of a field, and the Fey Rider gains Large Flail. A large Flail is a close combat weapon, counts as a hand weapon. Attacks with this weapon ignore parry. In addition, the wielder gains +1 attack for each enemy model in base contact with it.
So
yeah, nice and simple.
Yeah, good anti-horde unit. Denying the parry and then the +1 attack. I mean, with the fact that you are 50 and set by 75 mil base, it's kind of funny because you could theoretically go in, charge here, at the end of turn 1 reform and get extra attacks.
Yes, yeah. I think it's strange that this one doesn't come with stubborn, because this is the one that you want charging into big ranked up units with combat res. So if you roll poorly, yeah.
I kind of feel like the stubborn one does the role that the summer one does as well.
Yeah.
Like it being stubborn, it's more reliable. In a lot of situations, I think the stubborn one's going to be more popular as a pick for sure.
Yeah, I mean the ignoring parry is nice, but really with your popping up from wherever you like, you shouldn't be charging things in the front. You shouldn't need to. You can just charge in the flank and ignore their parry anyway.
Well, yeah, if they don't turn to face, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean if they're turning to face you, then they're not facing the rest of your stuff.
Exactly, yeah, which is a good thing. Yeah, I think both of these guys with their ambush potential, very annoying. Potential to disrupt lines, opens things up to other units being able to line up charges easier if you've got these guys running around the back lines. So they're definitely a good pick that you could would not be. I'm not going to say they're an auto include, but they are very solid.
Yeah, definitely. And they're another option to take single model combat power out of characters if you want to go slightly heavier on magic in your characters, if for whatever reason you wanted to do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. Right, so that's the end of the book. So, favourite and least favourite? What do you fancy?
So I think my least favourite is probably it's between the Friars Lantern and Ladies Courtier. I think I'm going to go with the Friars Lantern. It's an interesting unit. I mean, most of this stuff is fairly good. I don't think the Friars Lantern is bad, but it's kind of roundabout chaff that I feel like is about the same points for a yeoman unit, and maybe the yeoman unit is just as solid in a lot of situations, or possibly more solid. So I'm not. It's an interesting unit for sure, and I think in some situations it could be great, but I think in a lot of situations you might be better served by a unit of yeoman.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They're more general use, right? For my least favourite, I think I'm just going to go for the Field and Stone upgrade on the Fey Night. I think with us talking about that there, I don't think that does anything different that the Stream and Springs does. Yeah, I don't think you could get anything extra out of the Field and Stone, even to the 10 points less. You're just better off going for the other ones that can then challenge, which is useful for babysitting your cowboys as well.
Yep. Yeah, no, I see that as well. Yeah, there's a very clear choice between the two Fey Night variants. I think Spring is definitely better.
Cool. So favourite unit?
Probably the Spring Fey Night.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's the best thing in the section, to be honest. I think there aren't, like I said, I don't think there were really any really bad ones in this, but I think that's the clear winner.
Yeah, that's fair. My favourite, I'm going to go for the Friars Lantern. So the thing that you're not a fan of, I'm picking as my favourite, just because I think it's weird. I think that's,
it's definitely weird, and like I say, if your opponent's got a big character star, this is potentially a really annoying unit for it, or a big expensive combat unit. This is potentially really annoying.
Yeah, definitely. And if they haven't got any ranged magic damage or shooting, or even just limited shooting, they're going to find it really difficult to remove this thing. Any cover plus the hard target is going to be just such a ball to kill.
Yeah, it does have the advantage with its fly 16 and scout that it could be potentially in position to be annoying on turn 1 as well.
Yeah, and for the whole game as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't turn around and shoot it. Cool, so that takes us to our lists, final day for the week. So we said yesterday that you haven't taken anything from the Fey section in yours.
Certainly Fey Night
as long as my maths is...
but no, I didn't have the points to squeeze him in.
I suppose you could drop one of the Pegasus Knights and a Knight Resplendent.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, just about, plus something else. And then for mine, as long as I've done my maths correctly, I've got points to put in a Friars Lantern, and I'll have that as my second thing of the chaff job type thing. So I didn't feel like I needed the Fey Night, certainly not more than needing just scoring units or just blocks of units. The Nyads I'd only take for magic, and I felt with a Shamanism Monster I had enough stuff, plus the Bound Spell in Core. And what's the other one? The Fey Courtier. So again, I didn't need the magic, and I wasn't sure about the Dawn version, so I didn't go for that.
No.
But yeah, I think with cheaper characters you could go for for those options there, and get us certainly a decent magic phase out of the out of your Fey category. Yeah. Cool. So now that we're at the end of the book, do you want to pick a favourite unit for the whole book?
The whole book. Oh.
Yeah. A favourite little thing from the whole book.
That is a question. I think my top pick out of everything in there is probably the Knights Resplendent, because they're just nuts.
Yeah, they are really, really good.
It's a huge impact for the points. You got to set up the charge, but that's just a unit people can't ignore. Like you've got to be really careful around that thing.
Yeah, and setting up the charge isn't exactly a new thing for KOE, so
yeah,
that's not wild for you. My pick for the whole book is probably going to be the Folk Hero. I think just the ways that you can build this unit and the different flavours that you can give it. And
I was thinking
about
that as well. The Folk Hero is pretty amazing. He's a very well designed. He's very interestingly designed thing. It's a great fun.
Yeah, I think that really opens up the list building options in characters. Cool. There we go. That's the end of it. So thank you very much for watching. If you've watched all of this, and if you've watched the end of this video and everything, yeah, let us know what you think. Give us some lists if you've been able to snatch enough of the points from the videos, and tell us what you're looking forward to most. Thanks for coming on and joining me for the review, Hugh.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me, and happy Christmas, everyone.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be Christmas Day, this one going up, I think. Cool.
If all according to plan, yeah.
Yes, yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.
Bye.